Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we are going to learn about a very special man. His name was Nelson Mandela. This story is for Level 1 learners, so I will use simple words and short sentences. Listen carefully. You can learn a lot from this story. Nelson Mandela was born in 1918 in a small village in South Africa. The village was called Mvezo. His family was not rich. His father was a local leader in their village, a man who advised the local king. Young Nelson grew up hearing stories about his people's history, their struggles, and their pride. When Nelson was a child, he did not have the name Nelson. His birth name was Rolihlahla, a name from his own language, Xhosa. It is said this name means pulling the branch of a tree, or in simple words, troublemaker. Later, on his first day of school, a teacher gave him the English name Nelson because that was common at that time. From then on, most people called him Nelson. Nelson's father died when Nelson was only 9 years old. After that, Nelson went to live with a powerful local leader, a regent, who became like a second father to him. This regent made sure Nelson got a good education, something many children in South Africa at that time could not receive. At that time, South Africa had a very unfair system. This system was called apartheid. The word apartheid means separateness in the Afrikaans language. Under apartheid, Black people and white people could not live in the same areas. They could not use the same buses. They could not use the same schools. They could not use the same beaches. They could not even sit on the same park benches. Black people like Nelson Mandela and his family had far fewer rights than white people, even though Black people were the majority of the country's population. When Mandela grew up, he moved to the big city of Johannesburg to study law. He was one of the first Black lawyers in South Africa. Every single day, he saw how unfair the system was for Black people. He saw families separated. He saw people arrested simply for walking in the wrong part of town. He saw children unable to attend good schools because of their skin color. He decided he needed to do something about it, not just for himself, but for millions of people like him. Mandela joined a group called the African National Congress, or the ANC for short. This group worked to end apartheid and give equal rights to all people in South Africa, no matter their skin color. Inside the ANC, Mandela quickly became a strong and respected young leader. At first, Mandela and the ANC used peaceful methods. They organized marches. They wrote letters. They gave speeches. They asked the government again and again to change the unfair laws. They believed that if enough people spoke together, peacefully, the government would eventually listen. But the government did not listen. Instead, the government responded with more control and more violence. Peaceful protesters were beaten. Peaceful meetings were broken up by police. Many innocent people were hurt. Some were killed. One terrible day in 1960, in a place called Sharpeville, police shot and killed dozens of peaceful protesters, including women and children. This event shocked Mandela deeply. After Sharpeville, Mandela felt he had no more peaceful options left. The government had banned the ANC completely, making it illegal even to be a member. Mandela and other leaders had to meet secretly, moving from house to house, always hiding from the police. During this time, newspapers began calling Mandela the Black Pimpernel, because, like a character in an old story, he always seemed to slip away just before the police could catch him. In 1962, after living in hiding for many months, the police finally arrested Mandela. They put him on trial. At first, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison for organizing protests and leaving the country illegally. But while he was already in prison, the police found more evidence connecting him to secret ANC activities. In 1964, a new, more serious trial began, called the Rivonia trial. During this trial, Mandela did not deny what he had done. Instead, he stood in the courtroom and gave a long, powerful speech. He explained why he had fought against apartheid. He said he was ready to die for his beliefs, if that was what it took to see South Africa become a free and fair country for everyone. His words were so powerful that they were printed in newspapers around the world. The court sent him to prison for life. He was only 46 years old. Nobody knew at that time that Mandela would stay in prison for 27 years. Mandela was sent to a place called Robben Island, a small island prison surrounded by cold, rough ocean water, far from the mainland. Life there was extremely hard. Mandela worked in a stone quarry every day, breaking big rocks under the hot African sun, hour after hour. The white glare from the limestone rocks damaged his eyes over the years. His small prison cell had almost nothing inside it, just a thin mat on the floor and a small bucket. He could only see his wife and children a few times each year, and only for a short time, through thick glass, unable to even touch their hands. But even in prison, Mandela did not give up hope. He did not become full of hate. Instead, he read many books. He studied law further, earning a law degree even while imprisoned. He talked with the prison guards, learning their language, Afrikaans, so he could understand them better and eventually speak with them almost as equals. He tried to understand their side too, even though they were keeping him in prison unfairly. Mandela once said something very important. He said that if you want to make peace with your enemy, you must work with your enemy. Then your enemy becomes your partner. This idea guided him through all those long, difficult years. On Robben Island, Mandela was not alone. Many other ANC leaders and activists were imprisoned there too, in the same section of the prison. Even though the guards tried hard to keep the prisoners quiet and separated, the men found small ways to communicate and support each other. They passed notes hidden inside food containers. They whispered lessons to each other while breaking rocks in the quarry. Over time, this small group of prisoners created something the guards never expected: an informal school. Prisoners who knew history taught history. Prisoners who knew economics taught economics. Mandela himself often taught, and the other prisoners began to call the prison yard, jokingly, Mandela University. This spirit of learning and sharing, even in the worst conditions imaginable, became one of the most powerful parts of Mandela's own legacy, long before he ever became president. While Mandela was in prison, more and more people around the world heard about him. Musicians wrote songs about him. Students in other countries protested outside South African embassies, demanding his release. People in many countries pressured their own governments to stop supporting the South African government. Slowly, apartheid South Africa became isolated from much of the world, unable to trade freely or compete in international sports, because so many nations refused to work with a country that treated its own people so unfairly. Inside South Africa, pressure grew too. The economy suffered. More and more South Africans, both black and white, began to believe that apartheid could not continue forever. Finally, a new South African president, F.W. de Klerk, decided the country needed to change direction. In February 1990, after 27 long years, Nelson Mandela walked out of prison. He was 71 years old, his hair now gray, but his back still straight, and his eyes still full of purpose. Millions of people around the world watched on television as he walked, hand in hand with his wife, through the prison gates, raising his fist to a huge, cheering crowd. Many people cried with joy that day, in South Africa and far beyond it. In the days after his release, journalists from every corner of the world traveled to South Africa just to hear him speak. Many of them arrived with the same question, over and over. After everything that was taken from you, how can you not be bitter? Mandela would often smile calmly and explain that bitterness would have kept him imprisoned in his own mind, even after his body was free. He said that he had made the decision, long before walking out through those gates, that he would not let hatred be the last 27 years took from him too. Many people expected Mandela to be angry. They expected him to want revenge against the people who took 27 years of his life, who took him away from his children as they grew up, who kept an entire nation of people beneath their feet for generations. But Mandela surprised everyone. Mandela did not want revenge. He wanted peace. He worked together with President de Klerk to end apartheid completely and peacefully. This was incredibly difficult work. Many people on both sides did not trust each other. Some white South Africans feared violent revenge once black South Africans gained power. Some Black South Africans felt that working peacefully with their former oppressors was a betrayal of everyone who had suffered or died under apartheid. Mandela had to convince both groups, again and again, that a shared future was possible. In 1993, Mandela and de Klerk won the Nobel Peace Prize together for their work to end apartheid without a large-scale war, something many experts had believed was impossible. In 1994, South Africa held its first free election, open to citizens of every race. For the first time in the country's history, Black South Africans could vote. People waited in lines that stretched for miles, sometimes for many hours. Some elderly voters casting a ballot for the very first time in their long lives. Nelson Mandela became the first Black president of South Africa. The man who spent 27 years in a small prison cell became the leader of his entire country. As president, Mandela worked hard to bring the country together, not tear it apart. He knew many white South Africans were afraid of what a Black-led government might do to them in return for decades of suffering. He knew many Black South Africans wanted real, visible justice for the pain of apartheid. Mandela tried every day of his presidency to help both groups feel safe, respected, and included in the new South Africa. One famous example happened during the Rugby World Cup in 1995, held in South Africa itself. Rugby was a sport that most white South Africans loved deeply, but most Black South Africans did not follow closely because of decades of enforced separation since Black players had rarely been allowed on the national team. Many expected Mandela to ignore the tournament entirely, or even quietly support the opposing teams as a symbol of protest. Instead, on the day of the final match, Mandela walked onto the field wearing the South African team's green jersey, the number 6 on his back, the same number worn by the team's captain. The mostly white crowd, seeing their Black president wearing their team's colors, erupted into a chant of his name. It was a small gesture wearing a simple shirt, but it carried an enormous message to the entire country. We can be one team, one nation, together, no matter our history. Mandela also created a special commission after becoming president called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. This commission gave people who had committed violence during apartheid, on all sides, a chance to publicly confess what they had done and ask for forgiveness, in exchange for avoiding punishment. It was a controversial idea. Not everyone agreed with it. But Mandela believed that healing the whole nation mattered more than punishing every single individual, and that hearing the full, painful truth out loud was the only way South Africa could truly move forward together. Mandela served as president for 5 years. After that, he chose not to run for president again, even though the Constitution would have allowed him to try, and even though many people wanted him to remain in power. He believed strong countries need new leaders regularly, not just one leader forever, no matter how loved that leader might be. This decision itself became another powerful example for other African nations, many of which struggled with leaders who refused to ever step down. After leaving the presidency, Mandela continued working. He raised money to fight HIV and AIDS, a disease affecting millions of people across Africa, including, sadly, his own son, who died from complications related to the illness. Mandela spoke openly about this loss at a time when many people still felt too much shame to discuss the disease publicly, helping to reduce that shame for countless other families. Nelson Mandela passed away in December 2013 when he was 95 years old. When the news spread, people all over the world stopped to remember him. Lights were dimmed on famous buildings. World leaders traveled to South Africa for his funeral. Ordinary people in dozens of countries held small candlelight gatherings simply to say thank you for what his life had shown the world. Today, people all over the world remember Nelson Mandela as a symbol of forgiveness, patience, and hope. His face appears on statues, murals, and currency. His words are quoted by students, teachers, and world leaders alike. But perhaps his most lasting lesson is simply this, that even after the deepest injustice, choosing understanding over hatred is not weakness. It is, in fact, one of the hardest and most powerful choices a person can ever make. Nelson Mandela's story teaches us many important lessons. First, real change often needs great patience, sometimes many years, even decades of patience. Second, anger and revenge do not build a better future. Forgiveness and understanding do, even when forgiveness feels almost impossible. Third, one person's example, even something as simple as wearing a certain shirt, can help millions of people trust each other again. Fourth, true leadership means thinking about everyone's future, not just protecting your own power or comfort. Fifth, healing a divided community usually requires hearing the full, honest truth first, even when that truth is painful to hear. Now it's time to learn vocabulary from today's story. Unfair means not right or not equal. Example, apartheid was a very unfair system. Protest means to show that you disagree, often in a group. Example, people organized a protest. Arrest means when the police take someone because they broke a law. Example, the government arrested Mandela. Prison means a place where people are kept as punishment. Example, Mandela spent many years in prison. Quarry means a place where workers break big rocks. Example, he worked in a stone quarry. Enemy means a person who is against you. Example, he made peace with his enemy. Revenge means hurting someone because they hurt you first. Example, he did not want revenge. Election means when people vote to choose a leader. Example, South Africa had a free election. Forgiveness means deciding not to be angry anymore about something bad that happened. Example, forgiveness was very important to him. Symbol means something that represents a bigger idea. Example, he became a symbol of hope. Isolated means kept apart or separated from others. Example, South Africa became isolated from the world. Confess means to admit that you did something wrong. Example, people could confess what they had done. Gesture means a small action that shows a feeling or a message. Example, wearing the shirt was a powerful gesture. Legacy means what a person leaves behind after they are gone. Example, his legacy is still remembered today. Try to use these words in your own sentences. This will help you remember them. Now let's practice speaking together. Repeat after me. Speak slowly and clearly. Mandela fought for equal rights. The government sent him to prison. He stayed there for 27 years. He did not become full of hate. He chose forgiveness instead. He became the first Black president. He wore the team's shirt with pride. He worked to bring people together. His story still gives us hope. His words still teach us today. Practice these sentences 2 or 3 times. This will help your speaking and your confidence. Thank you so much for listening to this story today. I hope you enjoyed it and learned some new English words too. Now, I have a few simple questions for you. What part of Nelson Mandela's story surprised you the most? Do you think you could forgive someone after 27 years in prison? What does the word leadership mean to you after hearing this story? What small gesture, like Mandela's rugby shirt, could you use to bring people together in your own life? Please write your answers in the comments below. I would love to read them. If you liked this story, please like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more easy English stories. Take care, keep learning, and see you next time.